I don't rent to dirty black trash. Get out before I throw you out like the garbage you are." The words hit like a slap. Sunday morning. Church clothes still pressed. Bible still warm in Dorothy's hands. Benjamin Davis stood frozen. 72 years old. 31 years at the Atlanta post office. Never missed a payment. Never caused trouble. And a white man half his age just called him garbage. Vincent Hartley blocked their path. The landlord, rich, arrogant, untouchable. He looked at Benjamin's worn Sunday suit and sneered. "You think because you've been here 23 years you own something." He spat on the ground near Benjamin's shoes. "This building is for respectable people now, not welfare cases, not charity, not black." Dorothy began to cry. Soft, silent, broken. Benjamin reached for her hand. But here's what Vincent Hartley didn't know. This elderly black couple had an adopted son. And that son? A federal judge. 1 week before that terrible Sunday morning. Apartment 4B, Ridgewood Terrace Apartments, Atlanta, Georgia. The Davis home told the story of a lifetime lived with love and purpose. Every photograph on the wall carried a precious memory worth more than gold. Every piece of furniture held a story that deserved to be told. Every scratch on the hardwood floor marked a moment lived and cherished. 23 years of memories filled these walls like invisible treasure that no amount of money could ever purchase. Benjamin Davis sat in his favorite chair by the window. The morning sunlight fell warm and golden across his newspaper. He turned the pages slowly and deliberately, savoring his coffee the way he did every morning, enjoying the peaceful quiet of another ordinary day in their sanctuary. These simple moments meant everything to him now that he was older and wiser. An article caught his attention and made him pause. Housing discrimination on the rise across America. Landlords forcing out long-time tenants using underhanded tactics, targeting the elderly who couldn't fight back, targeting minorities who had nowhere else to turn, using legal loopholes and fabricated violations to push vulnerable families from their homes without mercy or conscience. Benjamin shook his head slowly with a heavy sigh. He turned the page and tried to forget what he had read. Not here. Not in his building. Not after 23 years of faithful and perfect tenancy. Some things in this world were still sacred. Some promises still meant something. Dorothy hummed a familiar hymn in the kitchen. Her voice was soft and melodic, like it had been for the 47 years of their marriage. She moved from plant to plant with her watering can that Benjamin had given her for their 30th anniversary. Geraniums bloomed bright red on the windowsill, catching the morning light. African violets decorated the counter with their delicate purple beauty. A small herb garden provided fresh basil and rosemary and thyme for her famous Sunday dinners that the whole family looked forward to each week. This apartment was their sanctuary, their refuge from a world that didn't always treat them fairly, their home where love lived in every corner and every memory. Benjamin had worked 31 years at the Atlanta post office without a single complaint or incident, sorting letters until his fingers ached, loading trucks in the summer heat and winter cold, working overtime whenever they needed extra money for bills or emergencies, or to help someone at church who was struggling. He never complained about the hard work, never called in sick even when he probably should have, never asked for special treatment or favors from anyone. He retired with a modest pension and a firm handshake from his supervisor, who told everyone within earshot that Benjamin Davis was the most reliable and honorable man I have ever worked with in my entire career. Dorothy taught Sunday school at Mount Zion Baptist Church for 2 full decades without missing a single week. Every child in the congregation knew her name and her face, knew her warm and welcoming smile that made everyone feel special, knew the way she had of making every single person feel loved and valued and important regardless of their circumstances. Parents trusted her with their most precious gifts without hesitation. She never once let them down or gave them reason to doubt their faith in her. They paid their rent on the first of every month like clockwork, never late, Not once in 23 years. Not even by a single day. Their payment record was absolutely perfect, without a single blemish. Their reputation in the building was spotless and well-earned. Their lives were simple and honest and filled with gratitude for what they had. This wasn't just an apartment with walls and a roof. This was home. This was everything they had worked for and everything they had built together. On the refrigerator door hung a photograph that meant more to them than all the others combined. A young black man in graduation robes with a smile that could light up the darkest room. His arms wrapped tight around Benjamin and Dorothy with fierce pride and love, all three of them smiling with pure and uncontainable joy that radiated from the photograph like sunshine. A small label beneath it read in Dorothy's careful handwriting, Isaiah, Law School Graduation, 2001. Dorothy paused by the photograph as she did every single morning without fail. She touched it gently with her fingertips like it was something holy and precious, the way she had touched it every morning for more than 2 decades. Isaiah called this morning while you were in the shower. He's been so busy lately with his work, working too hard as always. I worry about him sometimes. Benjamin looked up from his newspaper with a knowing smile. That boy always works too hard, has his whole life, gets it from you and that stubborn streak of yours. Dorothy smiled warmly at her husband of 47 years. Gets it from both of us, I think. We raised him right. They never had biological children despite wanting them desperately for many years. The doctors said it wasn't possible no matter what treatments they tried. For years that truth sat between them like an empty chair at every holiday dinner table and every birthday celebration. A constant and painful reminder of what they couldn't have no matter how much they prayed or hoped. A wound that seemed like it would never fully heal. Then came 1985. And everything in their lives changed forever. A social worker called on a Tuesday afternoon about a 7-year-old boy in the foster care system. His name was Isaiah. He had been in the system since the day he was born to a mother who couldn't care for him. Moved from home to home like unwanted luggage. Family to family without ever finding a place to belong. Nobody wanted him for longer than a few months. Nobody saw his potential hiding beneath the fear and silence. Nobody believed he would ever amount to anything. The system had given up on him completely. He was just another statistic, another lost child that nobody wanted to save. Benjamin and Dorothy drove to the group home that very same week without hesitation. Their hearts were full of hope and nervous fear about what they might find. Isaiah sat alone in the far corner of the common room away from everyone else, skinny and small for his age, silent as a ghost, scared of everything and everyone around him. He wouldn't look at anyone who approached him, wouldn't speak when spoken to, wouldn't respond when the other children tried to include him in their games and activities. He had built walls around his heart that seemed impossible for anyone to breach. Dorothy walked across the room and knelt beside him on the cold, hard floor. She didn't say a single word to him, didn't push him to talk or respond, didn't demand anything at all from this broken little boy who had been let down by everyone who should have protected him and loved him. She just held out her hand, patient, loving, waiting for however long it might take. Isaiah looked at her for a very long moment that seemed to stretch into eternity, his young eyes searching her face desperately for something real. Trust, sincerity, love. Something that wouldn't disappear like everything else in his short and painful life. Then slowly and carefully, and with great courage, he took her hand in his small fingers. He never let go, not then, not ever. 3 miles across the city of Atlanta, Hartley Property Management Headquarters. Vincent Hartley's corner office screamed wealth and privilege to anyone who entered. Mahogany desk imported from Italy that cost more than most cars. Leather chairs that cost more than most people's monthly salary. Modern art on every wall that he didn't understand but knew was expensive enough to impress visitors. a panoramic view of the Atlanta skyline through floor-to-ceiling windows that made him feel like a king surveying his kingdom. Vincent didn't build any of this empire with his own hands. He inherited every single piece of it from his father, who had actually worked for what he had. His father purchased Ridgewood Terrace back in 1975 with money he earned through decades of hard work. Built it as affordable housing for working families who needed a decent place to live. A legacy of service to the community that he was proud of. The old man believed with all his heart that everyone deserved a decent home, regardless of their income level or the color of their skin. When the old man died in 2019 after a long illness, Vincent took control of everything his father had built. He had very different plans for the property and the people who lived there. Vincent scrolled through tenant files on his expensive computer with a bored expression. His eyes stopped on one particular name that made his jaw tighten with irritation. Davis, Benjamin and Dorothy, Unit 4B. Monthly rent, according to their lease, $1,100. Current market rate for comparable units in the building, $2,400. These old people were costing him more than $1,000 every single month. Money that should be going into his pocket instead of being wasted on charity cases who didn't deserve to live in his building. He picked up his phone and pressed the intercom button with an impatient finger. "Donna, get in here, now. I don't have all day." His assistant appeared in the doorway within seconds. Young, nervous, desperate to keep her job in a brutal economy that offered few options for people like her. "Pull the lease for apartment 4B immediately, the Davis file. Find me something I can use against them. Anything at all that I can use to get them out of my building." Donna hesitated for just a moment, her voice small and uncertain. "Mr. Hartley, sir, they've never missed a single payment. 23 years of perfect tenancy. Their record is absolutely spotless without any violations." Vincent didn't bother looking up from his computer screen, his voice cold and dismissive. "Then we'll just have to be creative about finding reasons to remove them. That's what I pay you for." Donna walked away without another word, said nothing more about her concerns, did exactly as she was told, despite the sick feeling growing in her stomach. 3 days later, 7:45 a.m. on a Wednesday morning, a sharp and aggressive knock at the Davis door startled Dorothy from her morning routine. Dorothy answered in her robe because she hadn't expected any visitors this early in the morning. Nobody ever came to their door before 9 o'clock. It simply wasn't done in their building. Vincent Hartley stood in the hallway with an arrogant posture that immediately made Dorothy uncomfortable, clipboard in his manicured hand, smile plastered on his face that didn't reach his cold eyes, the kind of smile that made Dorothy's stomach tighten with instinctive unease. "Mr. and Mrs. Davis, I'm here for a routine inspection of your unit. City requirements that must be satisfied. I'm sure you understand the necessity. We weren't notified about any inspection coming today or any other day. We always receive written notice at least a week in advance. Last-minute scheduling that couldn't be avoided, I'm afraid." Vincent walked past her without waiting for permission or invitation like he owned the place, which legally he did. "This won't take very long if you cooperate fully." He moved through their home like a predator searching for weakness, because that's exactly what he was doing. He opened every cabinet in the kitchen looking for violations that didn't exist, checked behind every piece of furniture for problems that weren't there, ran a finger along the windowsill and examined it for dust, like a drill sergeant. He photographed a small water stain on the ceiling with obvious satisfaction and made detailed notes on his clipboard. "This water stain is a habitability concern that must be documented. Very serious violation of building standards." Benjamin watched from his chair with sharp and alert eyes, tracking every movement the landlord made, taking mental notes of everything that was happening. "That stain has been there since 2018, Mr. Hartley. We reported it to your office 5 separate times over the years, submitted written requests, made phone calls. Your office never sent anyone to fix the problem despite our repeated requests." Vincent didn't look up from his clipboard, his voice dismissive and unconcerned. Well, it's documented now as a tenant-caused violation. That's what matters for the official record. He paused at a photograph hanging on the wall near the entrance. Benjamin as a younger man on his retirement day, standing tall with pride, shaking hands with his supervisor after 31 years of dedicated service to the United States Postal Service. Vincent smirked at the photograph with obvious contempt. Cute picture. Very quaint. He walked out without another word of explanation, without basic courtesy or respect, without acknowledging the two human beings whose home he had just invaded and violated. Dorothy closed the door behind him with trembling hands, her face pale with worry and confusion about what had just happened. Benjamin, what was that really about? Why would he come here like that? Benjamin stared at the closed door with hard eyes, his face grim, his mind working through possibilities. Trouble. That's what that was about. He's looking for excuses to push us out. That same evening, the apartment quiet and dark. Dorothy had gone to bed early because the stress of the day had exhausted her completely. Benjamin sat alone in the living room surrounded by shadows. His phone buzzed and broke the heavy silence. He looked at the screen with tired eyes. Isaiah. He answered immediately with a voice that tried to hide his worry. Hey, son. Good to hear from you. Isaiah's voice came through the phone warm and strong and familiar. The voice of the boy they had raised and the man he had become. Hey, Pop. Just checking in on you and Mama. She mentioned on the phone this morning that some landlord has been giving you trouble lately. Benjamin hesitated for a moment before responding. It's nothing to worry about, son. Just some young fool with a clipboard trying to feel important and justify his salary. Silence on the other end of the line. Isaiah knew his father far too well to believe that casual dismissal. He could hear the tension in Benjamin's voice that his father was trying to hide. Pop, I know that tone in your voice. I've known it my whole life. What's really going on down there? Tell me the truth. Benjamin sighed deeply like a man carrying a heavy burden. I don't want you worrying about us, Isaiah. You've got enough on your plate with your work and your responsibilities. We can handle this ourselves. Isaiah's voice hardened with determination. Just slightly, just enough to show he meant serious business. You and Mama gave me absolutely everything I have in this world. You saved my life when nobody else would even look at me. If someone is messing with you, that's my business too. That's always going to be my business until the day I die. Benjamin smiled despite the worry gnawing at his chest. You always did fight for the underdog, son, ever since you were a little boy. I learned from the best teachers in the world. You and Mama taught me everything I know about standing up for what's right. A meaningful pause filled with unspoken love. Listen, Pop. If this situation escalates at all, you call me immediately. No hesitation. No trying to handle it yourself. Promise me. I promise, son. Good. I love you, Pop. Give Mama my love, too. I love you too, son. More than you'll ever know. Benjamin hung up the phone and sat alone in the darkness for a very long time, staring at the photograph on the refrigerator that glowed faintly in the dim light from the window. Isaiah in his graduation robes. That scared 7-year-old boy transformed by love into a powerful and righteous man. Tucked carefully in the corner of Isaiah's graduation picture was a yellowed newspaper clipping. Dorothy had saved it the day it was published all those years ago. Never took it down. Never let anyone move it even an inch. The headline was partially visible in the dim light from the street outside. Atlanta's newest federal judge makes history. That phone call would change absolutely everything. 5 days after the inspection, a morning that started like any other but would end in devastation. Benjamin walked to the mailbox in the lobby following the same routine he had followed faithfully for 23 years. Check the mail, sort the bills by due date, throw away the advertisements and junk that cluttered the box. Simple, predictable, Safe. He pulled out the stack of envelopes with familiar motions. Electric bill due in 2 weeks. Water bill due at the end of the month. Church newsletter from Mount Zion Baptist with announcements about upcoming events. And one crisp white envelope with the Hartley Property Management logo embossed in gold leaf. Benjamin's heart began to pound hard against his ribs. His weathered hands went completely still. He knew exactly what this was before he opened it. He could feel the malice radiating from the envelope like heat from a fire. He tore the envelope open carefully with fingers that had begun to tremble, unfolded the official letter inside with growing dread. Notice to vacate. 30 days. The words blurred before his eyes like they were written in a foreign language. He read them again, and again, and again, each time hoping they would change, each time knowing they wouldn't. Grounds for eviction: repeated lease violations including unauthorized occupants residing in the unit, property damage caused by tenant negligence, and failure to comply with mandatory inspection requirements. Tatin, every single word on that paper was a deliberate and calculated lie. Unauthorized occupants? It had always been just the two of them living in that apartment. No one else had ever resided there, not once in 23 years. Property damage? A water stain on the ceiling from a leak that building management had refused to fix for 6 long years despite 5 documented written requests for repairs. Failure to comply? He had let Vincent into his home without a single word of protest or resistance, had cooperated fully with every demand. Benjamin's hands began to tremble violently, not from fear or weakness, from the lie of it, the calculated cruelty behind every word, the casual destruction of 23 years of perfect tenancy with a single piece of fabricated paper and manufactured evidence. He walked back to the apartment, moving slowly and heavily, like a man carrying an invisible weight pressing down on his shoulders that no one else could see or understand. Dorothy stood at the stove preparing breakfast like she did every morning, eggs sizzling in the pan with butter, coffee brewing strong and dark. A normal morning in what had been a normal life that was about to shatter into a million pieces. She turned when she heard the door close, saw his face twisted with anguish, knew immediately that something terrible had happened. Benjamin? What happened? What's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost. He couldn't make himself speak the words. He just walked to the table and set the letter down in front of her with shaking hands. Dorothy picked it up with growing confusion, read it slowly. Her spatula clattered to the floor from fingers that had gone numb with shock. Unauthorized occupants? Benjamin, it's just us living here. It's always been just the two of us in this apartment. There's never been anyone else. I know. Property damage? We've been begging them to fix that leak in the ceiling for years. We have copies of every letter we sent, every phone call we made. I know. Dorothy sank into a kitchen chair like her legs could no longer support her weight. Tears began forming in her eyes and streaming down her weathered cheeks. Can he really do this? Can he just lie like this and throw us out of our home that we've lived in for over 2 decades? Benjamin sat down heavily beside his wife, took her hand in his, squeezed it tight like he would never let go. He's doing it, Dorothy. He's actually doing it. 1 hour later, the property management office that Benjamin had never once visited in 23 years of tenancy. Benjamin walked through the glass door with his back straight as a steel rod. His chin held high with dignity, the hard-earned dignity of 72 years of honest living wrapped around him like invisible armor that no one could strip away. Donna, the receptionist, looked up from her desk. Her face went pale as milk the moment she recognized him standing there. Mr. Davis, how can I help you today, sir? I need to speak with Mr. Hartley. Immediately. Right now. It cannot wait. He's currently in a meeting with some investors and cannot be disturbed. The office door swung open dramatically before she could finish her sentence. Vincent Hartley emerged with a coffee cup in his hand and that same cold reptilian smile spreading across his face. "Mr. Davis, what a pleasant surprise. Come to discuss your moving arrangements already. That's surprisingly cooperative of you. I didn't expect you to accept reality so quickly." Benjamin held up the eviction notice like it was evidence of a crime. Because that's exactly what it was. His voice came out steady and controlled despite the rage building in his chest. The voice of a man who had spent 72 years learning the hard discipline of patience and restraint. "This letter is a lie, Mr. Hartley. Every single word printed on this paper is a deliberate fabrication." Vincent sipped his expensive coffee with an amused expression, completely unbothered by the accusation, confident in his power and position. "The official documentation says otherwise, Mr. Davis. The evidence is clear and irrefutable. You have 30 days to vacate the premises. I strongly suggest you use that time wisely and start packing your belongings." Benjamin took a step closer to the younger man, close enough to see the absolute emptiness in Vincent's pale blue eyes, close enough to smell his expensive cologne that probably cost more than Benjamin's monthly grocery budget. "I have worked hard my entire life, Mr. Hartley. Honest work that built this country. I paid my rent on time every single month for 23 years. I have never broken a single rule in this building. Not one violation in over 2 decades of tenancy." He held the letter inches from Vincent's smug and arrogant face. "You will not push me out of my home with lies and fabricated evidence." Vincent set down his coffee cup on Donna's desk. The false smile disappeared completely from his face. Something darker and more honest took its place. The mask was finally slipping to reveal the monster underneath. "Mr. Davis, let me be absolutely crystal clear with you about your situation." He stepped forward aggressively, so close that Benjamin could smell the coffee on his breath mixing with that expensive cologne. "I don't care what you did 30 years ago or 50 years ago or ever. I don't care about your allegedly perfect payment record. I don't care about your pathetic little church or your pathetic little wife or your pathetic little life that means nothing to anyone." His voice dropped to a poisonous whisper meant only for Benjamin's ears, dripping with undisguised contempt and hatred. "This building is going upscale whether you like it or not. Premium tenants with money to spend. Premium prices that actually make me money. And frankly speaking, you and your wife simply don't fit the demographic profile I'm targeting for this property." The word hung in the air between them like poison gas slowly filling the room. Demographic. Benjamin knew exactly what that word meant in Vincent's mouth, had known what it meant his entire life living as a black man in America. "Demographic," he repeated slowly, letting the word hang there. Vincent smiled again. Thin, reptilian, triumphant in his cruelty. "You heard me perfectly clearly, old man. Don't pretend you didn't." Donna sat frozen at her desk like a statue, staring at her computer screen with unseeing eyes, pretending desperately not to hear the conversation happening 3 feet away from her. But her hands had stopped moving on the keyboard. Her face had gone pale with shame. Benjamin looked at Vincent Hartley for a very long moment. 72 years of restraint holding him in place. 72 years of being told by society to be patient, to wait for justice that never seemed to come, to accept indignity with grace and silence. He turned without another word and walked out of that office with his dignity intact. But his eyes were no longer defeated or hopeless. They were calculating, planning, preparing. Back at the apartment, Dorothy sat at the kitchen table they had eaten 10,000 meals at together. The eviction notice spread in front of her like a death sentence, tears streaming down her face and dripping onto the hateful paper. 23 years, Benjamin. We raised Isaiah in this apartment from a scared little boy into a great man. We celebrated every birthday here with cake and candles and love, every anniversary with flowers and dancing in the living room, every holiday with family and food and gratitude for our blessings. Her voice broke completely like a dam giving way to floodwaters. "How can he just take it all away from us? How can one cruel man destroy everything we built?" Benjamin picked up his phone from the counter where it had been charging, stared at Isaiah's name in the contacts list, his thumb hovering over the call button. He had never asked his son for help. Not once in all the years since they adopted him. Not when the car broke down and they couldn't afford the repairs. Not when Dorothy's surgery cost more than their insurance would cover and they had to take out a second mortgage. Not when times got so hard they wondered how they would make it through another month. Never. Not once. He was too proud to burden the boy who had already overcome so much. But this wasn't about pride anymore. This was about Dorothy and the tears streaming down her beautiful face. About their home and the memories that lived in every corner. About right and wrong and justice and everything he had taught Isaiah to believe in. He pressed the call button. "Isaiah, it's Pop!" A long pause filled with decades of unspoken words. "I think we need to talk, son. Something bad is happening." Day 12 since the eviction notice arrived. The lobby of Ridgewood Terrace Apartments. Benjamin and Dorothy stepped through the front door carrying grocery bags from their weekly shopping trip. Just a normal afternoon errand that they had done together hundreds of times before. Just two elderly people carrying food home to their apartment. Nothing about this day would remain normal for long. Vincent Hartley stood in the center of the lobby like he owned the entire world. Because in his mind he did. He wasn't alone in his arrogance. A young white couple stood beside him, hanging on his every word. Designer clothes that probably cost more than Benjamin's entire monthly pension. Expensive jewelry glittering under the lobby lights like they were advertising their wealth. The kind of privileged people who had never worried about rent or eviction or discrimination in their entire comfortable lives. Vincent gestured grandly at the newly renovated lobby space like a king showing off his castle. "As you can clearly see, we're in the middle of a complete transformation of this property. New lighting throughout the entire building. Updated amenities on every single floor. And most importantly, a much more selective and exclusive tenant community." His cold eyes found Benjamin and Dorothy standing near the door with their grocery bags. He didn't lower his voice. He raised it intentionally and dramatically, making absolutely sure that everyone in the lobby could hear every hateful word. "Some unfortunate holdovers from the previous ownership are still here, as you can see, but they'll be gone very soon, I assure you. We're cleaning house, so to speak. Removing the undesirable elements." The young couple glanced at Benjamin and Dorothy with obvious discomfort written on their faces, embarrassment at being witnesses to such blatant cruelty. But they said nothing to intervene, did nothing to help, just stood there in complicit silence. Dorothy quickened her pace toward the elevator with her head down and her shoulders hunched, humiliation burning in her chest like acid eating through her heart. Benjamin stopped walking, planted his feet firmly on the marble floor. He looked directly at Vincent with eyes that had seen too much injustice in 72 years. Refused to look away or back down from this bully. "We're standing right here, Mr. Hartley, right in front of your face. If you have something to say about us, then say it directly to us. Don't talk about us like we're not even human." Vincent laughed loudly and theatrically for the benefit of his audience, dismissive and cruel, playing to the wealthy young couple like an actor on a stage. "Mr. Davis, please. Davis. This is a private business conversation with potential premium tenants. Don't make a scene and embarrass yourself further than you already have." Dorothy turned back from the elevator. Her voice shook as she spoke. Not from fear. From fury that had been building inside her for weeks, like a volcano preparing to erupt. "My husband worked 40 years to provide for our family with honest labor. He has more integrity and honor in his smallest finger than you have in your entire body and soul combined." Her words echoed across the marble floor like thunder, strong, clear, unafraid of consequences. "You are nothing, Mr. Hartley. Nothing but a small, cruel man with money he didn't earn." She turned with dignity and walked to the elevator. Benjamin followed close behind her, his head held high with pride in his wife's courage. Behind them, Vincent's arrogant smirk flickered and died. Just for a moment. Just enough to show the cracks forming in his armor of privilege. The young couple left quickly without signing any paperwork or making any commitments. Small victory in a larger war, but a victory that tasted sweet nonetheless. Day 18. Day 22. Day 26. The harassment intensified with each passing day. A second notice appeared claiming noise complaints from neighbors who swore they never filed any such complaints. The water was shut off for 6 hours until Benjamin threatened to call the city and file criminal charges. A final inspection brought strangers into their home who photographed everything and touched their personal belongings like criminals searching for evidence. Vincent whispered his cruelest words yet directly into Benjamin's ear during that final inspection. Words that would haunt him. Nobody cares about two old black folks in a rent-controlled apartment. You're invisible to the world. You're completely powerless. You're absolutely nothing, and nobody will help you. Day 28. The absolute breaking point for Dorothy. She sat motionless in her favorite chair, staring at the photograph on the refrigerator like it was the only thing keeping her connected to hope. Isaiah in his graduation robes, smiling with pure joy, proud of everything he had accomplished, full of hope for a future that seemed bright and limitless. She started to cry. Not soft tears this time, not silent dignity, deep, broken sobs that shook her entire body like an earthquake. The kind of crying that comes only when hope has finally died completely. We worked so hard, Benjamin. We did absolutely everything right our whole lives. We paid every bill on time. We went to church every Sunday. We treated every person we met with kindness and respect. We never asked for anything we didn't earn with our own hands. She looked at her husband with red, swollen eyes, face wet with tears of despair. Why is this happening to us? What did we do wrong to deserve this? Benjamin knelt beside her chair, ignoring the pain in his old knees, took both her hands in his weathered fingers, held them tight like they were the most precious things in the world. We didn't do anything wrong, Dorothy. Nothing at all. Some people in this world think power means cruelty. They think money makes them better than everyone else. They think they can take whatever they want from whoever they want without any consequences. He squeezed her hands firmly with conviction. But they're wrong. And they're going to find out exactly how wrong they are very soon. Dorothy looked up with confusion. What do you mean, Benjamin? I called Isaiah yesterday, told him everything that's been happening, every detail, every insult, every lie. Her eyes widened with surprise and concern. You finally called him for help? Benjamin, he's so incredibly busy with his important work. He insisted on coming here immediately. Canceled every single appointment on his calendar without hesitation. Said he's taking the rest of the week off from the court. Benjamin's voice grew quiet but fierce with pride. Said he has something very important to handle personally. Dorothy wiped her eyes with trembling fingers. She looked at the photograph on the refrigerator again. At the yellowed newspaper clipping tucked carefully in the corner that she had saved all those years ago. Atlanta's newest federal judge makes history. Her baby boy. The child nobody in the world wanted. The 7-year-old who sat alone and terrified in the corner of that group home. Now one of the most powerful judges in the entire federal court system. She smiled through her tears for the first time in weeks. That boy. He always did like to handle things himself. Day 29, 10:48 in the morning. 48 in the... A black Lincoln town car with dark-tinted windows pulled slowly into the Ridgewood Terrace parking lot. The engine purred to a stop with mechanical precision. The driver stepped out first, professional and alert. Walked around to the rear passenger door with practiced efficiency. Opened it with a slight bow of respect. Isaiah Davis emerged into the morning light like a force of nature. 46 years old. Tall and distinguished, commanding presence that filled any space he entered without effort. A tailored charcoal suit that cost more than Vincent Hartley's monthly car payment. Italian leather shoes polished to a mirror shine. Every detail perfect. Every movement deliberate and powerful. A presence that commanded respect without asking or demanding it. Two men followed him out of the car with serious expressions. One carried an expensive leather briefcase. The other held a thick manila folder stuffed with documents and evidence. Both men walked with the focused intensity of professionals on a serious and important mission. Isaiah looked up at the building where he had grown up. Ridgewood Terrace. The place where Benjamin and Dorothy had transformed a broken, unwanted child into the man he became through nothing but love and patience and faith. His jaw tightened with barely controlled anger at what had been done to his parents. He straightened his tie with precise movements and walked toward Building B with purpose in every step. And the confrontation in Vincent Hartley's office was swift and devastating. Isaiah walked through the door with calm, controlled power radiating from every pore. Vincent emerged from his office with his usual smirk. "Another Davis? Come to negotiate your parents', sir, and—" He stopped mid-word when he actually looked at the man standing in his lobby. The expensive suit, the commanding posture, the absolute stillness of supreme confidence, the FBI agent in the Navy windbreaker standing behind him. Who are you?" Isaiah stepped forward, one measured step. "My name is Isaiah Davis, United States District Judge, Northern District of Georgia." He paused to let the words sink in completely. "And I'm the adopted son of the two people you've been systematically harassing, discriminating against, and attempting to illegally evict for the past 30 days. The color drained from Vincent's face like water from a broken vessel. "We have documentation of fabricated complaints, falsified inspection reports, illegal utility shutoffs, sworn statements from 6 former tenants you displaced using identical discriminatory tactics. All black, all elderly, all on rent-controlled leases." Isaiah stepped closer until his face was inches from Vincent's terrified expression. "That's not a pattern, Mr. Hartley. That's a federal civil rights violation under the Fair Housing Act of 1968. Vincent's coffee cup slipped from his trembling fingers and shattered on the floor. "Please, I'll drop the eviction. I'll apologize." Isaiah leaned close, voice dropping to a whisper that somehow filled the entire room. "You told my father that nobody cares about 2 old black folks. You called them garbage. You spat at their feet like they were animals." He smiled coldly. "You were wrong." 12:30 p.m. The lobby of Ridgewood Terrace. FBI agents escorted Vincent Hartley out in handcuffs in front of dozens of witnesses and multiple news cameras. The lobby erupted in thunderous applause from residents who had lived in fear for years. Mrs. Patterson hugged Dorothy until neither could breathe. A reporter approached Benjamin with a microphone. "How does it feel knowing your son brought your landlord to justice?" Benjamin considered the question with the wisdom of his years. "I'm proud of Isaiah. But I'm prouder of who he is than what he is. We raised him to stand up for people who can't stand up for themselves. Today he did exactly that." Isaiah walked to his parents through the cheering crowd. "You okay, Pop?" Benjamin nodded with tears in his eyes. "I'm okay, son." They embraced, father and son, past and future, love that conquered hatred. Dorothy joined them, arms around both her boys. A family, unbroken, unbowed, victorious. 3 weeks after Vincent Hartley's arrest, the Davis apartment filled with morning light. Benjamin sat in his favorite chair reading the newspaper. A different headline today. Hartley Properties ordered to pay $2.3 million in historic discrimination settlement. He read it twice with deep satisfaction. Smiled at the justice finally delivered. Set the paper aside. Dorothy hummed a hymn in the kitchen, water running freely from the faucet, coffee brewing strong and dark, plants watered and thriving in the sunlight. Everything exactly as it should be, as it had always been, as it would continue to be. A gentle knock at the door interrupted the peaceful morning. Dorothy answered with curiosity. Her expression softened with compassion when she saw who stood there looking broken and ashamed. Donna Crawford, Vincent's former assistant, the woman who had witnessed everything happening, who had stayed silent when silence was the easier path, until she finally found her courage and spoke up when it mattered most. "Mr. and Mrs. Davis, I hope I'm not intruding on your morning. I know I have no right to be here after everything." Dorothy stepped aside with genuine warmth. "Come in, honey. Please come in." Donna sat on the edge of the sofa with her hands clasped tight together, eyes red and swollen from crying, body language showing the weight of guilt she had been carrying. "I came to apologize to you both, properly, in person, face to face." Benjamin lowered his newspaper, listened with patience and without judgment. "I knew what Mr. Hartley was doing to you was wrong. I knew it from the very first day. I saw the complaints he fabricated with my own eyes. I heard the terrible racist things he said about you and other tenants. I watched him target your family and others specifically because of who they were." Her voice cracked with emotion. "And I said nothing to stop him. I did nothing to help you, because I was afraid of losing my job, afraid of what he might do to me if I spoke up, afraid of my own shadow." She looked at Benjamin with tear-filled eyes, seeking something she didn't deserve. "I'm so deeply sorry. I'm so sorry for my cowardice and my silence." Benjamin studied her for a long moment. This young woman caught in an impossible situation, who had made the wrong choice for understandable reasons, who was now trying desperately to make things right. "You came here today to face us. That takes real courage, Donna." Donna shook her head vigorously. "It doesn't begin to make up for what I didn't do when it would have mattered most." "Maybe not." Benjamin leaned forward in his chair. "But when the FBI showed up at that office, what did you do then?" Donna swallowed hard. "I cooperated completely with their investigation, gave them everything I had access to, every email, every recording, every document. I testified against him under oath, and I'll testify again at the criminal trial, whatever they need from me for as long as they need it." Dorothy moved to sit beside her on the sofa, took her trembling hand with gentle kindness. "Then you did the right thing, honey, when it mattered most. When it was hardest, when you had the most to lose." Donna looked at her with surprise and overwhelming gratitude. "How can you possibly forgive me after everything I allowed to happen?" Dorothy smiled, that same gentle, loving smile that had convinced a scared little boy to take her hand 40 years ago. "Forgiveness isn't about what people deserve, honey. It's about what we all need to heal and move forward together." Donna Crawford testified at Vincent Hartley's civil and criminal trials. Her insider evidence was absolutely instrumental in securing the guilty verdicts and maximum penalties. 3 months after the trials concluded, the Atlanta Housing Authority offered her a position: compliance officer specializing in fair housing violations and tenant protection. She accepted without hesitation. She would spend the rest of her professional career making absolutely certain that no one else ever went through what the Davis family endured. Sometimes redemption comes from the most unexpected places and people. The lobby of Ridgewood Terrace looked completely different under new management. A local nonprofit focused on affordable housing preservation had taken over operations. They kept the rents fair and stable for longtime tenants, fixed maintenance issues within days of reports, responded to every resident concern promptly and professionally. A bulletin board near the mailboxes displayed photographs of current residents. The Davis family in the center position of honor, Mrs. Patterson, Mr. Coleman, dozens of other smiling faces representing the community. A bronze plaque mounted below the photographs read, "This building belongs to its community." Benjamin and Dorothy walked through the transformed lobby, hand in hand as they had walked through every challenge for 47 years of marriage. Neighbors waved and smiled, stopped to chat about grandchildren and church events and the beautiful weather, asked about Isaiah and his family, expressed gratitude for the courage the Davis family had shown. A young black family struggled with moving boxes near Unit 2C. The apartment Vincent had been greedily preparing for luxury conversion before his arrest. The mother paused when she saw Dorothy, recognized her instantly from the television coverage of the trial. "Mrs. Davis, I just wanted to say thank you from my whole family for fighting so hard, for standing up, for all of us who couldn't fight." Dorothy squeezed her hand with genuine warmth. "We didn't fight alone, honey, and neither will you. Not ever again." Sunday evening, the Davis family table overflowing with food and love, Benjamin at the head of the table where he belonged, Dorothy beside him glowing with happiness, Isaiah and his wife Angela across from them, their two beautiful children Maya and James completing the circle of family. Food covered every surface, fried chicken cooked to golden perfection, collard greens simmered for hours with ham hock, macaroni and cheese baked until the top was perfectly crispy, sweet potato pie for dessert, Dorothy's treasured recipes, passed down from her mother and grandmother, now being carefully taught to Angela, soon to be taught to Maya when she was ready. Grace was said with genuine gratitude for blessings received. Plates were filled to overflowing. Laughter echoed off the walls like music. Maya looked at her grandfather with admiration shining in her young eyes. "Grandpa, at school everyone keeps talking about how you were on television, how you stood up to a really bad man and won." Benjamin glanced at Isaiah with a slight knowing smile, then back at his granddaughter. "I just told the truth, sweetheart. That's all I did. Your father did the hard part." Isaiah shook his head firmly. "No, Pop. You taught me what justice looks like, what courage looks like, what love looks like." His voice grew thick with emotion. "When I was 7 years old, nobody wanted me. Nobody believed in me. But you and Mama chose me. You showed me that every person has value. Every person deserves dignity and love." He raised his glass. "I'm a judge because of what you taught me. That's the only reason." Benjamin raised his glass with tears in his eyes. "To family. The one we're born into. The one we build with our own hands. The one we choose with our hearts." Everyone raised their glasses together as one. To family. That evening, the sun setting over Atlanta, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and pink and purple, Benjamin and Dorothy sat on their small balcony, the same balcony where they had sat together 1,000 times before, where they had watched Isaiah grow from a frightened boy into a powerful man, where they had shared dreams and fears and hopes for nearly a quarter-century. Dorothy rested her head on Benjamin's shoulder, her hand wrapped securely in his weathered fingers. "Do you think things will be different now, Benjamin? For people like us?" Benjamin watched the sky transform through its beautiful colors, considered her question with the wisdom of his years. "I don't honestly know, Dorothy. The world changes slowly, much slower than it ever should." He squeezed her hand gently. "But I know this with absolute certainty. We're still here, in our home, after 23 years. And that man who tried so hard to push us out?" He smiled with quiet satisfaction. "He's not." Dorothy laughed softly. "That's definitely something worth celebrating." "That's everything, Dorothy. That's absolutely everything." They sat together in comfortable silence, watching the sun disappear below the horizon, listening to the familiar sounds of the city they loved, feeling the warmth of a life well lived together. Benjamin Davis passed away peacefully in that same apartment 4 years later, surrounded by a family who loved him beyond measure, holding Dorothy's hand until his very last breath. Dorothy still lives there today. Same apartment, same chair by the window, same photographs covering every wall. Every year on the anniversary of Vincent Hartley's arrest, Isaiah visits without fail, He brings flowers for his mother, brings food for sharing, brings his children to remember their grandfather. They sit on the balcony together, watch the sunset, tell stories about Benjamin that make them laugh and cry. And they remember the lesson he taught them. Justice isn't given to us by others. It's built by our own hands. One family at a time, one stand at a time, one moment of courage at a time. The Davis family built theirs, and nobody will ever take it away. Here's what this story teaches all of us. Vincent Hartley looked at Benjamin and Dorothy Davis and saw two elderly black people with no power, no connections, no voice. He assumed they would accept injustice because fighting back was too hard and too expensive. He called them garbage, spat at their feet, told them nobody in the world cared what happened to them. He was catastrophically wrong. Not because they had a federal judge in the family, but because Benjamin and Dorothy refused to accept that what was happening was acceptable, refused to believe they were worthless, refused to disappear quietly. They documented everything, every notice, every complaint, every lie. They reached out to neighbors, built a network of witnesses. They called their son, not to fight their battle for them, but to help them fight their own. And they stood in that lobby and said the most powerful words any human being can ever say. This is wrong, and I will not accept it. That's where real justice starts. Not in courtrooms, not in handcuffs, not in million-dollar settlements, in the simple act of refusing to be silent. The statistics are devastating and important to understand. According to the National Fair Housing Alliance, there are approximately 4.5 million instances of housing discrimination in the United States every single year. Fewer than 1% are ever formally reported. Vincent Hartley counted on that silence. He was wrong. Here's what I want you to do. First, share this story. Not for views, because somewhere there's a Benjamin and Dorothy who needs to see that fighting back is possible. Second, know your rights. Learn about the Fair Housing Act. Document everything. Report discrimination to HUD. It's free. It works. Third, be the witness. If you see discrimination, don't look away. Record it. Report it. Stand with the people being targeted. Here's the truth. Vincent Hartley didn't lose because Isaiah was a federal judge. He lost because the Davis family refused to disappear. They stood in that parking lot while he called them trash. Stood in that lobby while he humiliated them. Stood in that office while he threatened them. And they said, "We matter. We belong here. You will not erase us. That's not a legal strategy. That's dignity. And it's available to everyone." Vincent Hartley asked Benjamin a question in that parking lot. "What? You gonna call someone?" Turns out he did. And that someone changed everything. If this story moved you, drop a comment below. Have you witnessed injustice and wondered if fighting back was worth it? Let's talk about it together. Because stories like this remind us who we are, who we can become. They prove that one person, one family, one moment of courage can change everything. Hit like, subscribe. Share with someone who needs to hear this message today. And remember always, justice isn't given. It's built. One stand at a time.